Hello, welcome to my channel. This is Annette with Sunbeam Fabric Art. Today we're going to make a basic block called a 4-patch, and here I am using 5-inch squares. We're going to do this method first, and then we're going to do a different method using strips. Once you have the 4 patches laid out as you wish to have them, you will sew the top two together with a 1/4-inch seam. Next, you will sew the bottom two together, again with a 1/4-inch seam. Next, I put the top and the bottom sections right sides together, and then I used a little method called nesting these seams. I made sure that the seams were going in opposite directions, and I kind of slid the top section over a little bit to make sure that it butts up against that bottom section seam, and because those are going opposite directions, that will nest very nicely. Then I just took it over to the sewing machine and stitched a 1/4-inch seam. When you're first starting out, you may want to go ahead and put a pin or a clip on that seam to hold it in place when you take it to the sewing machine. And the reason why nesting is so important is because when you open up this 4-patch block, those seams do match up in the center. And here is another little 4-patch I made where the dark green is opposite from the light green, and this one, oops, I did not get those lined up properly. The way I trim a 4-patch is I determine the total width of the finished block, and I find the halfway mark to that. In this case, it was 4 3/4 because this was going to be a 9.5-inch block. So I lined up the lines for 4 3/4 on the vertical line and the horizontal line with that middle cross where the two seams come together. You would take a rotary blade and trim on the right side and the top side. Then you would flip your block around and trim the other two sides the same way. In my case, this block must have been cut and sewn perfectly because I didn't have to trim it at all. A fast way of making multiple 4 patches is to take 2 strips of fabric and sew them together. And you will take those strips and press them open to the darker side. My strips were 2 inches wide, so when I sewed them together, I lost a 1/4 inch from each strip, resulting in a 3.5-inch width. And it's important to know the width that you have and are starting with. I am going to now cut 2-inch sections from these strips because that will be a total of 4 inches. And when I lose that 1/4-inch seam from both sides, I will end up with a 3.5-inch finished square. I'm using a line on my ruler to lay on that seam line so that I get nice straight vertical cuts. This method can be used with any size strip, just whatever size strip you're starting with, that is the width of your vertical cuts as well. Because we pressed these strips to the dark side first, the nesting here is going to be very easy to do. I'm taking 2 of the pieces I cut, making sure the lights and the darks are opposite of each other, and then I simply slide these together so those 2 seam lines catch. There's a little bump there that's created, and those catch. Then I will take this to the sewing machine, stitch a 1/4-inch seam, open this up, and give it a press. As we discussed earlier, we need to find the center of 3.5 inches for my block. The center is 1 3/4, so we line up the 1 3/4 marks on the ruler with the very center of the block, and then trim the right side and trim the top side. Then we can flip that block around, do the exact same thing, matching up now to the 3.5-inch line as well as the 1 3/4 line. There are so many fun things you can do with 4-patch blocks. You can set them down and rearrange them in any way you want to. The important thing to do is have some contrast. As you can see, these grayer blocks, they don't have as much contrast as I would normally like. I'm still going to find some use for them, but I really like these pink and blue ones better because there's a lot more contrast there. But you can be turning these blocks any which way and make all kinds of fun things. Thanks for joining me for this little tutorial today. I hope you had as much fun as I did, and I hope you found this information useful. If you like my channel, feel free to subscribe and like the video. I hope to see you back real soon.